We'll begin our journey at the 12th century Marienberg fortress, towering above Würzburg. The old bridge over the River Main is just about as old. The 12 saint statues adorn the massive edifice. Würzburg is a centre of Baroque architecture. The Carmelite church, with a single nave and barrel vaults, was the first place of worship in this pleasant style, completed in 1662. The chapel of Our Lady dominates the marketplace and is in late Gothic style. Nearby is the Falkenhaus, the richest town house of Würzburg. The marketplace is still the focal point even today. A Baroque fountain decorates the place in front of the Grafeneckart, the former residence of the electoral officials. Würzburg is a very old city and was first mentioned in records in 704 AD. The residence, the Elector's Palace, was built to the plans of the famous architect Balthasar Neumann in the 18th century. It is one of the major works of southern German Baroque. Today it houses the largest university collection of classical discoveries in Germany. We leave Würzburg and follow the romantic road which begins here. It leads us through a perfect landscape where time seems to have stood still. Aristocrats discovered these lovely valleys centuries ago. The lords of Hohenlohe built first a moated castle and then later made it into a Renaissance palace. Weikersheim Castle developed in this way too. It was built in a medieval style with drawbridges, gates and a keep. Viticulture has been a tradition since Roman times. Here the vines still flourish, producing delicious Franken wine. We now follow the romantic river landscape of the Tauber Valley. The path leads us to Rothenburg, but first we'll stop at Detweiler. St. Peter and Paul was built in 998 AD and hosts a unique work of art, Tilman Riemenschneider's Holy Cross altar. The first sight of Rothenburg is breathtaking. You feel as if you have been put back in time. Even transportation reminds us of an earlier time. An impressive building crosses the Tauber, the double bridge dating from the 14th century. Rothenburg is a town full of towers and defences. The medieval town walls can still be seen, despite the stormy past. The Röder Gate is a symbol of valour of this medieval town. The monastery gardens and the castle gardens are ideal for walks. The castle gardens were previously the site of a mighty castle of the Hohenstaufen. An earthquake destroyed it in the 15th century. Today the gardens are a well-kept park facility. The castle gate, the highest gate of the town. During sieges, hot pitch used to be poured onto the attackers from here. The market square is impressive with its stupendous town hall, St. George's Fountain, and behind it the Jagsheimer House and the Gothic town hall with its 60-meter tower. The view from the tower platform is a must for visitors. Rothenburg's town hall is 16th century. The clock in the gable represents the history of the town and portrays on each full hour the legend of the Meistertrunk. A play performed at Easter, Whitsun and on several Sundays of the year brings history close to us. The former mayor, Nusch, had to swallow down a vessel of wine containing 13 schoppen in one whole gulp in order to save Rothenburg from General Tilly's army. He managed all of this Meistertrunk. According to legend, General Tilly spared the town, and old Mayor Nusch slept off his stupor for 3 whole days. Rothenburg is the touristic center of Frankish Bavaria, and today records the wealth of medieval days. The Rossmühle is a relic of those times. The grinding mill was driven by horsepower and could provide the town with flour even during sieges. The main attraction of Rothenburg is the battlement walls, which can be visited even in wet weather. The Marcus Tower rises above the Röder Fountain. One of the loveliest half-timbered houses is the Gerlach Forge. Even up to 25 years ago, a smith worked here. The Shepherd's Dance dates back to a medieval legend. It is performed at Easter, Whitsun, and on several Sundays of the year. In 1517, the Shepherds Guild received the right to celebrate a Shepherd's Day with music and dance once a year. Apparently, the plague was driven out of the town through this event. Colorful dancers in historical costumes transformed the town market into a medieval dance floor. Thousands of tourists form the background to this performance every year. A coach trip into the past, but a thoroughly present-day pastime. When the evening covers Rothenburg, the night watchman takes up his duties, as of old, and explains readily to tourists his duty, and does so in several languages.
In the beginning of our tour, I want to give you some ideas about the night watchman. So I'm a night watchman, a modern one. And we had real night watchmen.
He not only had to announce the hour, but also had to watch the fires and detect any enemy approach.
They worked all night. Not only a few hours, and not for the fun of the people, but it was a hard work. In wintertime,
Rothenburg's wealthy role as an international trading town came to an end in 1803, when its freedom was taken away. Rothenburg remained as it was to the present day, a jewel of a city. Another jewel in the chain of romantic towns is Dinkelsbühl. The farmers of spelt, a special type of wheat, founded the settlement in the 12th century. Dinkelsbühl was granted civil rights in 1270. We enter the town through a well-preserved town tower, the Wernitz Gate. The old town is full of magnificent houses. The Segringer Tower and the other town defences owe their preservation to the Bavarian King Ludwig I. He prohibited the planned demolition of the wonderful town walls. Dinkelsbühl stood in the shadow of Rothenburg for a long time. However, tourists have discovered the special charm of this small town. What the Meistertrunk plague is to Rothenburg, in Dinkelsbühl there is the Kinderzeche. There is also a historical background to this too. In 1632, during the 30 Years' War, the town was besieged by the Swedes. The population was evangelical, but the council was Catholic. After several weeks, the council allowed the town gates to be opened. The Swedes entered the town, but the daughter of the tower keeper, known as Kinderlore, blocked the Swedes' entrance with a crowd of children.
Eures eigenen Kindes willen, Herr, dass Gott nach seinem unerforschten Willen in seine heilige Engelschar genommen. Gnade, Gnade, Gnade.
The Swedish Colonel von Sperreuth was moved to mercy and prevented the town from being burnt down and plundered. The play about Kinderlore is performed annually in summer. The Swedish camp is also part of the festivities. The townspeople show what a military camp of the 30 Years' War looked like. They recall the time of the siege in historical costumes. Dancing and soldiers' songs are part of the program. A parade is part of the historical Kindertsesche, which goes through the old town, decorated with garlands and flowers. The tradition of the legend lives on in the Knabenbataillon or Boys' Battalion. The uniforms are similar to those of the soldiers of that time. The highlight is the speech of the little colonel. The internationally renowned boys' band of Dinkelsbühl plays not only music dating from the 30 Years' War. They perform in Rococo-style uniforms and in the colors of the Fugger Regiment. Dinkelsbühl has nearly 11,000 inhabitants. It was a flourishing trade center in the Middle Ages. The Wernitz and the moat surround Dinkelsbühl. The 15th century town mill is preserved in the Nördlinger Gate. We'll go down the romantic road now. The pillar at the market square in Wallerstein is its own symbol. Wallerstein has a community of 3,000. Nördlingen is the third almost undamaged town along the romantic road. The churches, townhouses and fortifications are all well preserved. The defensive walls are almost 4 kilometers in length. St. George's Church is overlooked by the highest tower of the town, known as Daniel. The tower keeper's office has been occupied for the last 500 years. For non-Franks, so Geselle so is the historical call, so friend, so. Nördlingen, with its churches and museums, is worth visiting, and also the surrounding area, called the Ries or Colossus, a meteorite crater. On the border between Franken and Swabia, Harburg Castle rises above the river Wernitz, and was built as a defensive castle in the 12th century by the Staufer emperors for the protection of the important imperial route between Nördlingen and Donauwörth. The Fraunhof of Augsburg is proof of a real rich city. The shrewd and affluent merchant families, the Welser and the Fugger, originated here. The Fuggerei was the first welfare housing of the world. Since 1571, poor citizens can find a resting place here when they are of good reputation and pray daily. Augsburg is a city of museums. The State Gallery and the Schätzer Palace, with its Baroque facade, are all part of this. The High Cathedral is still a religious centre. The Bishop's Church dates from the 9th century. In 1594, the Augustus Fountain was built in the centre of the city. The magnificent town hall was built by Elias Holl in 1615. Augsburg is the most important financial city of the Romantic Road. The next stop is Landsberg on the Lech. Heinrich the Löwe had a castle built here to protect the sword route from Berchtesgaden. The Baroque buildings of the old town are very famous. The Bayer Gate, with its richly adorned facades above the fortifications, are valued as one of the finest Gothic gates in Bavaria. The town hall on the main square, with its stucco facade, is particularly impressive. The master mason later became mayor. Near Steingarten, the Wieskirche is one of the best Rococo buildings in Bavaria. Traditional weddings still take place here. The Church of the Condemned Saviour is a famous centre of pilgrimages and was consecrated in 1754. The Romantic Road has now reached Schwangau, the lovely mountain and lake district of the eastern Allgäu. The village of Schwangau is surrounded by 4 lakes. The slender early Baroque church at the foot of the Tegel Mountains is called St. Columbin, named after an Irish pilgrim who stayed here on his way to the Holy Land. Bavarian King Ludwig had Neuschwanstein built between 1869 and 1886. True romanticism as in pictures. It is a blessing for the whole region and for the tourists. The king was inspired after a visit to Wartburg Castle, and also by his favorite composer Richard Wagner. Part of the breathtaking views of Schwangau is the glimpse from the Marian Bridge into the Pollard Gorge. The Alp Lake, filled with crystal clear deep water, lies between both royal castles. Hohenschwangau, another royal castle which Bavarian Crown Prince Maximilian II had built in English Tudor style. Forgen Lake is another attraction of the Schwangau region. Meltwaters and the waters of the Lech fill the reservoir until summer. Then the lake is a surfing and sailing paradise for Bavarians. At the end of the Romantic Road we find Füssen. At the Hohe Schloss, the connection between the Alps and the River Main comes to an end. The high castle was built in the 14th century on the foundations of a Roman fortress. In the upper story of the gate or clock tower once lived a watchman. The Lech Bridge leads into the old town. A worthwhile excursion is the Lech Falls at the Lech Gorge. Here, according to legend, St. Magnus jumped into the dangerous waters on his escape from the pagans and left his footprint behind him. In a rocky niche high above the Lech Gorge, a bust commemorates Bavarian King Maximilian II. The Lech Gorge and Falls are really exciting for hikers. Füssen values tradition highly, and you get this feeling at a traditional evening show.
Dankeschön.
A view of Oberammergau. A Swiss author once wrote about the most peculiar, most original and educational of villages. It is a village of wood carvers and passion plays, and a host of visitors from around the world. This is the art at the Hansel and Gretel house. The art of painting outer walls is called Lüftel painting. Pilatus' house is especially beautiful with its decorative facade designs. Pilatus' house is open all year to visitors. Workshops have been installed here to demonstrate wood carving to tourists. Wood carving has a long tradition in Oberammergau, and for more than 1,000 years they have been modeling wax figures and doing glass painting. The wood carvers achieved a worldwide reputation. Centuries ago, these works of art were brought to all parts of Europe by carriers. The choice of motifs offered in a specialty shop is quite vast. All carvings made in Oberammergau are marked with a seal of quality. Anton Killer is a master wood carver. He has worked and exhibited in the United States of America and in Japan. Originally, wood carving was just a pastime for the long winter evenings, when the village was cut off from the outside world by snow. Nowadays, figures from Oberammergau can be found all over the world. A real Rococo jewel is the parish church of Oberammergau. The altar and the frescoes were fashioned by the great maestros of their times. The parish church was consecrated in 1749. The Passion Play Theatre can be visited daily. The Oberammergau Passion Play, in which Christ's life of suffering is reenacted, takes place every 10 years. The villages of these crucifix cross carvers have put on this play since 1634. The lay actors prepare for years, and to be chosen as one of the main characters is a true honor. Oberammergau has about 5,000 inhabitants and has had so for the last 200 years. There are cultural events nearly every day. Bavarian King Ludwig II built his loveliest castle in the Ammer Valley, Linderhof. It was the first castle he commissioned, and he saw its completion too. A huge fountain, a swan lake, a Venus grotto, and a Moorish kiosk still prove the elegance of this work. The beautiful gardens are worth a visit alone. Ludwig II often stayed at his Linderhof residence. Only a few kilometers away from Oberammergau, in the Ammer and Graswang Valley, you will find one of the most well-known centers of pilgrimage, Ettal, with its Benedictine monastery. The abbey with the Marian Münster was founded in 1330 as a knight's monastery and was extended in 1710. Around 1750, the Baroque dome was added. The best artists of the time worked on the fine Rococo style facade. Our journey continues through Upper Bavaria, through Werder Felsen country, until we reach the Tyrolean border near Mittenwald. This health resort lies between 912 and 2,244 meters above sea level. A cable car takes us from Mittenwald to the West Karwendel Peak at 2,384 meters. The Karwendel mountain range forms the borderline between Bavaria and Austria. The houses in the town center are built in terraces. A monument commemorates Mittenwald's musical tradition. It is called the Violin Makers Village. The Violin Museum is a major attraction for culturally interested visitors. Mittenwald also has a high school for violin making. The making of musical instruments began in Mittenwald in the 17th century. Perfect violins have been handmade by maestros for the last 310 years. A violin maker today is a highly qualified profession needing a 3-year apprenticeship. This can be studied at Mittenwald High School. At the Violin Museum, there are exhibits of string instruments from the centuries of tradition in Mittenwald. The Tyrolean school, under the instruction of Maestro Steiner, substantially influenced the violin makers of Mittenwald. Mittenwald is also very well known for its colorfully painted houses. Our trip continues down the Traun Valley to Ruppolding, a health spa in Traunstein County. Ruppolding is not only a winter sports resort, but also a center of industry. The forest worker's profession developed here, and a museum recalls this development. An indoor swimming pool and spa facilities are available for guests. Ruppolding is a touristic center all year round. This can also be said for Reitimwinkel, which is also in Traunstein County. Reitimwinkel lies 700 meters above sea level and borders with Austria. The parish church is the centerpiece of the village. An attraction for all country music lovers is the famous Kuhstall, owned by the Helbig sisters, who are famous in German hit parades. Traunstein country has a summer flair to it, loved by tourists for its fresh air and homely atmosphere. Now we'll leave the Traun region and go on to another well-known resort area, Berchtesgaden County. The meandering Rossfeld Road leads us through the Berchtesgaden County and offers breathtaking views of broad valleys. In the shadow of Germany's second highest mountain, the Watzmann, lies the leading touristic center of the Alps. Music also plays a leading role. Here the Berchtesgaden local band entertains its guests. From lovely Berchtesgaden, there is a wonderful view of the Kehlstein Mountain and the Kehlstein House. This is, unfortunately, a darker side of German history. Adolf Hitler had the Kehlstein House fitted out as a tea house. It sits atop the 1,834 meter high peak, and is obviously a difficult type of tourist attraction, just as much as the Obersalzberg, once Hitler's fortress. Nature has no influence over its historical partners. It is very eerie to walk through the underground entrance through which the Nazis once set foot. Let's go back to more peaceful waters. Königssee is near Mount Watzmann, jade green and untouched. It is 190 meters deep. Tourists are transported by the 21 ships of the Blue and White Fleet, which are all electrically powered. The Königssee is supposed to be the cleanest in Germany. In this valley, enclosed by mountains, wonderful echoes can be heard. On a peninsula in Königssee stands St. Bartholomew, the famous pilgrimage center of Berchtesgaden County. Boats moor here in order to let tourists go on a pilgrimage to the Apostle Bartholomew, the patron saint of shepherds and alpine farmers. As early as 1134, the church was mentioned in records. Back to Berchtesgaden and the salt works. You can visit the salt works, and 500,000 people do so every year. First travelling into the mine on a miniature railway and then sliding down into the pits. Not everyone's taste, but fun for most.
Hier befinden wir uns nun im Kaiser-Franz-Zinkwerk, ein alter Sohle-Gewinnungsraum.
A chapel has been erected in the underground rock surface. Visitors have the opportunity to become salt connoisseurs at this salt block. In Berchtesgaden, 200,000 tons of salt are mined annually. The town is the largest producer of salt in Bavaria. Exit from the underground world. The old salt mine has one advantage: it can be visited in all weathers. Especially in rainy weather, the stream of tourists is particularly large. There are lots of exciting adventures to be seen. The Almbach Ravine is a nerve-wracking experience. In the wildly romantic canyon, the paths are all secured with safety nets and railings. The Olympic Tower in Munich. Together with the Olympia Stadium, it recalls the Olympic Games held in Munich in 1972. The Olympic facilities are one of the modern attractions of the Bavarian capital. The Oktoberfest is more traditional. The parade of the organizers, and the symbolic figure is the Münchner Kindl. The greatest popular festival of the world begins on the penultimate Saturday of September. Music plays on the way to the Theresienwiese. Munich's Lord Mayor Kronawitter is always there. The idea of the Oktoberfest was created by royalist Munich citizens in 1810. A horse race was organized on the occasion of the marriage of Crown Prince Ludwig. Later, a popular festival developed. The Munich breweries demonstrate with their horse-drawn beer wagons that the tradition of hops and malt has not yet died out. The thirst of thousands of visitors is ever increasing. Anyone who has anything to do with the Oktoberfest takes part in the festival parade. Musicians, innkeepers, and showmen. At the end of September it all begins. Off to the Wiesn. Every year old records are broken. 6 to 7 million people come here annually. It is as well known in the United States, Japan or Africa as at home.
Dankeschön, vielen Dank, besten Dank, tausend Dank, Gott sei Dank.
In good weather, a Stein tastes really good outside in the fresh air. A mass, the contents of a large beer stein, is about 1 liter. Showmen from around the world are present here. Every year, they show the latest fairground attractions. The brewery horses are part of the show, as much as the beer. Beer is on draft in huge beer tents. Löwenbräu has been in Munich for 600 years, and it's a great honor to be a festival innkeeper, and a very lucrative one too. The profits of the beer tents are estimated to be in millions. More than 5 million steins of beer flow into thirsty throats, and more than 700,000 roast chickens and around 70 whole spit-roasted oxen are consumed every year. No visitor leaves the Oktoberfest hungry or thirsty. But Munich is not only beer drinking. The metropole is also an important German cultural center. The new city hall was built in Flemish style in the 19th century. The column of Our Lady, erected in 1638, commemorates the fact that the Swedish troops did not destroy the city. Marienplatz is the central square of Munich. Originally it was the town marketplace. The clock chimes and musical figures appear several times a day in the high tower of the new city hall. It is always lively around the City Hall and St. Peter's Church. Just like at Montmartre in Paris, artists offer their services to passers-by. But in Munich it is better to travel by underground subway or tram into the city, since parking spaces are a rarity. Exotic music near Marienplatz. This group from Bolivia has become part of Munich street life. No one should be surprised when a supposedly still-life figure suddenly moves. This is street pantomime. Fresh country produce is on sale daily in Munich's Viktualien Market. It was founded in 1807. The market women are renowned for their directness and their humour. Monuments of Liesel Karlstadt and Karl Valentin are dedicated to all Munich artists. At Platzel, one of the most famous inns of the world has its home, the Hofbräuhaus. It's no small wonder that the well-known song can be heard from the interior. Bavaria's capital can quite honestly be identified as a world metropole of beer. The Löwenbräu brewery exists since 1383. This was even a century before the introduction of the decree of purity of beer. The copper kettles in the southern house still represent the natural purity of beer, using only hops, malt and water. Bavaria's beer breweries speak for themselves. Of 1,300 German breweries, 900 are to be found in Bavaria. Highly modern filling equipment makes sure that beer drinkers always have enough to drink. 60,000 bottles are filled hourly. Nymphenburg Palace is surrounded by water and the former summer residence of the Wittelsbach family. Building began in 1664. Nymphenburg is one of the most important Baroque constructions in Germany. Back to Munich, the view from the 85-meter-high City Hall tower overlooking Liebfrauen Church. Munich has more than architecture to offer. It is also a metropole for museums and theatres. But what would the secret capital of Germany be without its Oktoberfest? The night impressions of this wonderful Bavarian city speak for themselves. Is often named the Venice of Lower Bavaria. The town is at the confluence of the rivers Inn and Itz at the Danube. The parish church of St. Peter and Paul and St. Stephen's Cathedral, the greatest Baroque church north of the Alps. A bishop had the Fester Oberhaus built to protect against unruly citizens in the 13th century. Today it holds a museum. The view of Passau has remained unchanged. The Fester Niederhaus is built at the confluence of the rivers Ilz and Danube. The convenient situation on the two rivers brought trading to the area. The old town hall of Passau dates back to the 14th century. It was extended several times up to the 19th century. Architects from all over Europe were employed to design the town hall and forecourt. The bishops commissioned Italian artists with the work. St. Stephen's Cathedral was mentioned in records as early as the 8th century. After a fire in the 17th century, it was rebuilt in Baroque style. Altötting is situated in the Inn Valley. The Upper Bavarian county town is the most famous Bavarian center of pilgrimage. Hundreds of thousands go on pilgrimage to Altötting to worship the shrine of the Black Madonna. Most of Altötting's 11,000 inhabitants profit from tourism. In the Collegiate Church, the tomb of General Tilly can be found. The festival hall, built according to plans of Gottfried Semper and Richard Wagner. This town is called Bayreuth and is the capital of German music. To visit Bayreuth is to pay homage to Wagner. One should not forget another great citizen of this town, Jean-Paul, the poet. All the world comes to this festival hill every year. The pleasures which attract visitors to Nuremberg are of more mundane art. Christkindlmarkt is the name of the market which begins a month before Christmas and attracts busloads of tourists every season. The market has been held here for over 400 years, and it is still tradition today to offer gifts of the season in the stalls. The main market is a Christmas shopping paradise. The Christmas market is opened by a ceremonial speech from the so-called Christmas child. Nuremberg toys were always sold all over Europe, even centuries ago. A local saying is that Nuremberg trinkets are sold throughout the land. Children stand and wonder at the shining Christmas stores. Now we'll leave the market and go up into the hills. The Wahlberg Railway takes us up to Rottach-Egern, high above Tegern Lake, one of the loveliest lakes in Bavaria. Tegern Lake has 9 square kilometers of waters and is up to 72 meters in depth. The town of the same name is situated on the banks of the lake. Wintertime in the valleys and on the peaks doesn't only mean the approach of the winter sports season. Feeding wild animals all over the alpine region is very important. Despite tourism, all types of deer are still found in the Alps, although tourists swarm the land for their own use. It is a special treat to watch the stags grazing. A horse-drawn sleigh ride near Garmisch-Partenkirchen. Over the past years, the tourist centers have learned a lot, and nowadays environmental protection is very important. The sleigh riders seem to enjoy their trip. There is no motor noise here to disturb the winter wonderland. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is at the foot of the Zugspitze mountain, which lies on the former trade route between Venice and Augsburg. Ornate houses prove the wealth of earlier days, and of today's wealth too. The old parish church of St. Martin dates from the 15th century. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is the starting point for an excursion to Germany's highest mountain, the Zugspitze. A casino is here too, for those who do not care for the heights. There are also more peaceful corners such as Floriansplatz in Partenkirchen. The ice stadium was built for the Olympic Games in 1936. Nowadays, tomorrow's champions train here. The Hausberg region and the Zugspitz Plateau, as well as the Alpspitz area, ideal for skiers. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is the top winter sports center in Germany, offering 53 cable cars and ski lifts. The Hausberg Railway transports its passengers up to an altitude of 1400 meters. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is also important for international winter sports activities. The Kandahar Race and the New Year ski jumping event are two examples of such international competitions. We approach Germany's highest mountain from Eib Lake. The Zugspitze peak is 2,962 meters above sea level. The cable car to the peak starts at Eibsee. The lake is at an altitude of 952 meters and is on the north side of the Zugspitze. A rack railway is the classic form of transportation to the Zugspitze. Up to 600 tourists an hour can be taken in all weathers up to the highest heights. The distance measures almost 19 kilometers, and the last 4.5 kilometers are underground. Germany's highest ski plateau. The attractions here are the Peak Cross, the Munich House, the Schneeferner House, and the Meteorological Observatory. The view from a height of 3,000 meters. Our journey along the romantic road to Bavaria comes to a close with a marvelous panoramic view of the Alps.